Today we're here to talk about some exercises to help strengthen the knee. The knee is a commonly injured joint in sports such as soccer and football and rugby when you're cutting and planting, pivoting and twisting. So we're going to use some exercises today that are going to strengthen some of the muscles around the knee to help prevent those injuries. Some of the muscle groups that we want to be looking at are the hip muscles, the quadriceps muscles, the hamstrings, and the calf muscles. The first exercise we're going to do is a hip bridge. The hip muscles, the muscles on the sides of the hips, are really important in controlling the stability of the knee. So here we're going to be in this position with the feet and the knees hip width apart, and we're going to use the buttock muscles, your glute muscles and your hamstrings, to lift the hips up off the bed. So if you can lift up there, we're going to hold that position for about 5 seconds, slowly lower back down to the start position, and you'd repeat that about 10 times. You can then do another variation of the bridge. If you find a small ball or a rolled up towel or a pillow, put that between your knees. We're now going to squeeze and activate some inner thigh muscles, which give us another component of stability to the knee. We're going to lift those hips up in the air again, hold, make sure you're keeping your buttock muscles nice and tight, and you're going to hold that for another 5 seconds. Repeat another 10 times. And then for the third variation, if you can have some rubber tubing, some elastic bands, we can put that around the legs, pull that up to just above the knees, keep those feet hip width apart. We're going to pull on that band now, so we're activating some extra muscles on the outside of the hip, and again go up into the same bridge. We can hold that for 5 seconds and repeat 10 repetitions. All of these exercises can be made a little bit more challenging or more difficult by raising the arms up in the air as we do the bridge, and the same thing, or putting your feet on an unstable surface like an exercise ball or a wobble board or a piece of foam, whatever you have to make it a little bit more unsteady. The next exercise we're going to do is an exercise we call the clamshell. This is an exercise to strengthen muscles on the side of the hip called the gluteus medius. It's an easy exercise to do incorrectly, so it's important to get your proper technique with this one. So this is your starting position, laying on your side. Your heels are going to stay together, and the important part with this one is we want to keep our pelvis just a little bit slightly tipped forward. So you're going to just sort of roll the whole trunk of your body a little bit forward, trying to keep your back in a relatively neutral spine position. You can use your core abdominal muscles, your tummy muscles a little bit to help hold you here, and then what you're going to do is keeping your heels together. The idea is to lift that knee up off of the other knee and lift it as high as you're able to go, but we'll notice that Seb's trying to roll backwards here, so we actually don't want to go that high. Keeping that pelvis nice and level, lift that knee again, but don't let the pelvis move, that's better. We can pause at the top and then slowly lower it back down. So again, remember, the most important thing is not to let this pelvis roll around as you're doing the exercise. So lift the knee again, pause, and slowly lower. You should be feeling the muscles back here on the side of the hip doing the work. You shouldn't be feeling the hip flexors in the front of the hip doing the work. So make sure you can feel it here. Do enough repetitions until you start to feel that these muscles are getting tired. It may be 8 repetitions, it may be 12, it may be 15. If you can do 3 sets of 20 of these exercises on both sides, that would be great. This next exercise is called the single leg squat. Single leg squat involves a lot of muscles that we use with every step that we take in running. It involves our hip muscles, our quadriceps, our hamstrings, as well as our calves. We have to have pretty good flexibility in the ankle as well as the hips to be able to do this. So Seb's going to demonstrate a single leg squat here, and what we're going to be looking for is we're going to be looking to see that he can keep his hips level and keep his knee in a straight line underneath his hip and tracking right over top of his second and third toe. So away you go, lift up the one leg, Seb. He's going to squat and come back down. Seb did that very well. He kept his hips pretty level. His knee was in a nice straight line as he squatted down again. So we're going to do another good one. That's perfect. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have your knee wobbling in and your hip tilting. So Seb's showing some good, poor single leg squats there. So important thing, hips level, knee in a straight line underneath that hip, and having that knee follow in line sort of over top of the second and third toe. That looks great. The next exercise we're going to do is another exercise to strengthen the muscles around the hips. We call it the Godzilla Walk. What you need is an elastic band wrapped around the outside of your thighs, just above your kneecaps, and we're going to incorporate some upper body with this. So we've got another elastic band that we're going to use in the hands. The idea of the exercise is just to be moving sideways or laterally in order to strengthen those hip muscles and keeping the knees and the hips in a nice straight line as we go. So Seb's going to demonstrate here. He's going to have his knees slightly bent as he's stepping sideways, keeping his knees underneath his hips and over top of his toes. At no point does he want to let his knee collapse inwards. He wants to keep his hips pointing straight ahead and stepping sideways nice and slowly and controlled. At the same time, he's stretching the band with the upper body to incorporate some upper body and some shoulder and core work into the exercise. So the next exercise is called a ball wall squat. What we've got is a wall, we've got the ball up against the wall, and you're going to be leaning up against the back of the ball. In order to do this exercise properly, we want to make sure that your feet are out in front of you. So don't have your feet directly underneath your hips as you do this exercise. So feet out in front of you about hip width apart, and Seb's going to just slowly squat down to close to 90 degrees. If you have any pain when you get that far down, just don't go that far. Try and find a range that's comfortable for you. As you go down, you should be forming a nice 90-degree angle at the knee as he comes down. His knees are staying above his ankles. They're not going over top of his toes. So let's demonstrate a poor squat there. Let's just back your knees up a little bit. Yeah, so we don't want those knees to be passing over top of the toes when you do this exercise. So one more time, squatting down, keeping those knees above the ankles as opposed to over top of the toes. You can repeat a number of repetitions of that, and then you can challenge it by putting something in between your knees, squeezing that ball in between your knees as you do the squat, just to activate some extra muscles of the thigh. You can repeat another set of those, and then we can do another variation. Can you do that with the ball? We're going to put a band around the knees, around the thighs. Do the same squat again, but keep the knees apart, pulling against the resistance of the band as you do this one. Now we've activated extra muscles on the outside as well as the inside of the hip while we're doing that exercise, keeping the knees in a nice straight line. The most important thing to remember when doing these exercises is to keep good form. Keep your hips and knees and feet in good alignment at all times. For more tips and videos and resources, go to SportMedBC.com.